As a medical school applicant, I understand how hard you have worked to position yourself well to get into medical school. You have taken all of the right courses, done the best scholarly activities, and studied hard for the MCAT. Oftentimes, what most students think should be the easiest part of this process, deciding what medical schools to apply to, is actually the one place where they make the wrong choices and, as a result, don't get accepted to medical school. Only 40% of medical school applicants, on average, are accepted to medical school each year. Every year, applicants find us looking for help because they weren't successful in the medical school application process. When we review their school lists, we determine they didn't apply to the right medical school. Creating a strategic medical school list is one of the key things you can do to ensure your success in the medical school admissions process. In this video, I will outline what you can do to increase your odds of getting into medical school by applying to the right schools for you. Let's get started now. My name is Dr. Jessica Friedman, and I am an emergency physician, former medical school admissions committee member, and faculty member. My years of experience in academic medicine and with MedEdits medical admissions allows me to offer strategic and thoughtful advice for your medical school application process. What are some of the questions you should ask yourself when deciding where to apply to medical school? First, there are likely personal considerations. Do you want to live in an urban or suburban environment? What climate do you prefer? Do you prefer a large city or a smaller city? Are you single or do you have a family? Where is your support system, and do you want to be close to friends and family? There are many personal factors that will impact your decision about where you would like to attend medical school. Also keep in mind that many students end up doing their residency training where they attended medical school or at their medical school's affiliated hospitals. So, when deciding where to apply, think about where you want to live for the next 4 years or more of your life. One of the biggest reasons that geography is so important is because your state residency will often determine what medical schools you are most likely to get accepted to. Why? Public or state medical schools often give preference to in-state residents. By the same token, as an out-of-state resident, it will be very difficult to get into some public medical schools where you are considered out of state. For example, let's say you are a New Jersey resident and you have an MCAT of 505. You see that the University of Mississippi has an average MCAT of 505 and decide to apply there. This is not a great idea, however, because Mississippi accepts no out-of-state applicants. Therefore, you have zero shot of getting into Mississippi. This is a very common mistake we see when reviewing medical school lists from unsuccessful applicants. Many applicants apply to medical schools where they have little to no chance of getting in. Now you are asking, where should I apply to medical school? It goes without saying, the more medical schools you apply to, the greater your chances of getting in. Ultimately, how many schools you apply to will depend on how competitive you are and how many reach schools you want to apply to. As a general rule, the more competitive you are, the fewer medical schools you should apply to. And if you are less competitive, you should apply to more medical schools. Unlike other admissions processes, there is no such thing as a safety school in medicine. All U.S. medical schools are competitive. However, the safest schools are those where your GPA and MCAT are higher than the average for accepted students. Reach schools are those where your MCAT and GPA are lower than those for accepted students. Target schools are those medical schools where your GPA and MCAT match or are close to the metrics for accepted students. When making up a school list, always apply to your state medical schools, since those will likely be your safest medical schools to get into. By the same token, out-of-state students are not competitive for state medical schools that accept few to no out-of-state students, regardless of how competitive the MCAT and GPA. Here are the steps we suggest you take to determine your school list. Get access to the MSAR, which will give you medical school's average MCAT and GPAs. This will cost you a small sum, $28, but this resource is the most reliable admissions data and is much more reliable than any online calculator. Review the average GPA and MCAT for your state schools. Unless your MCAT is more than 4 points lower or your GPA is more than 0.45 points lower, apply to those medical schools. Determine your safest schools. If a medical school, your GPA is more than 0.25 higher or your MCAT is more than 3 points higher, then it is one of the safest schools for you. Determine your target schools. If your GPA is within 0.25 points higher or lower than a medical school's average GPA, or if your MCAT is within 3 points higher or lower, then this is a target school. Figure out your reach schools. If your GPA is more than 0.25 points lower than a medical school's average, or if your MCAT is more than 3 points lower, that school is considered a reach. When using this formula, if your MCAT and GPA put you in different categories for a given school, always use the lowest category. For example, let's say your GPA puts you in a target range for a given school, but your MCAT score puts you in that reach category for that school. We advise you to always consider the school a reach rather than a target school. Using the same logic, if your GPA makes the school a target school, but your MCAT would put you in the safest category, consider that school a target. When applying to medical schools, use this breakdown. 15 to 20% of the schools you apply to should be reach schools. 40 to 50% should be target schools. 45 to 30% should be safest schools. The above strategy is a great place to start. However, you must realize that many factors go into making a school list, such as your experiences, written documents, letters of reference, and background. Also, depending on your stats and other factors, we might recommend applying to more or less of the schools in these 3 categories. The next common question we often hear is, how many medical schools should I apply to? The most recent AAMC data shows that, on average, each applicant submits 17 medical school applications. If you are a very competitive applicant for either your state schools or private schools, you might be able to apply to only 17 medical schools. However, since the process is so unpredictable and subjective, we recommend that the more typical applicant apply to 25 medical schools. Some of our students, depending on how many reach schools they want to aim for, apply to upwards of 30 to 35 medical schools. You may have heard of the WedgeDog SDN or WARS calculator, which is a system created by an SDN user that determines your overall competitiveness and then offers guidance on how many schools in different tiers you should apply to. WAR's predecessor is the Lizzie M score, which utilized a simpler formula. While Lizzie M is a great tool to use to compare yourself to other applicants, WARS uses more data points, which makes it a better tool in our opinion. The WARS calculator is a great tool to get an overall sense of where you should apply and to compare you to other applicants. In the article linked below, I explained more about the WARS calculator. But let's review how the calculator is used and the downsides to consider. First, there are 11 factors that you subjectively rate, such as GPA, MCAT, and research experience. By inputting your data for these 11 categories, WARS will then calculate which of 6 levels you belong in based on your overall score with a range of 0 to 121. Finally, you will be guided based on your level how many schools to apply to in each of 7 categories. After using the WARS calculator with numerous different data points, we can tell you that it is a decent tool to use as a very general guide. When we put in data for an outstanding applicant, WARS recommended the student apply to only 22 medical schools. In MedEdits experience, it is extremely rare that we recommend an applicant apply to so few schools. So what this indicates is that the total number of medical schools WARS recommends you apply to is very conservative. There are several other downsides to the WARS calculator, which are outlined in the article linked below. We want to emphasize that WARS is a very effective tool to offer you a general idea of your overall competitiveness and the range of medical schools for which you will be competitive. Finally, what are the top 10 easiest private medical schools to get into? We determined the overall top 10 easiest medical schools to get into as an out-of-state student based on a combination of average MCAT, GPA, and out-of-state matriculants. They are San Juan Bautista in Puerto Rico, Ponce Health Sciences University School of Medicine, also in Puerto Rico, Meharry Medical College in Tennessee, Howard University College of Medicine in Washington, D.C., Loma Linda University School of Medicine in California, Albany Medical College in New York, Loyola University Stritch School of Medicine in Maywood, Illinois, Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Nova Southeastern in Florida, and Rush Medical College in Chicago. What are the take-home lessons from this video? Number 1, apply to a broad range of medical schools and don't overestimate your competitiveness or apply to state schools where you have little to no shot as an out-of-state applicant. 2, be sure you apply to enough medical schools to guarantee your success in the process. 3, use online calculators such as WARS as a general guide only. If you have any questions regarding the content of this video, please comment below and be sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, feel free to email me anytime at info@mededits.com. I hope this video was helpful to you and wish you the best of luck as you begin the journey to becoming a physician.